Well, hi, everyone. This is Lance Edwards, and welcome to our As It Should Be podcast. And we've got an extra special guest for us today. We had the book launch, and the book went to #1 with your help. And, of course, a big part of that, the major component of that was we want to use the proceeds to benefit the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. And you guys knocked it out of the park. We were able to send a nice check to them, and they're doing such great work. I wanted to get an opportunity for you to learn more about the great work they're doing. So we have a really great privilege today. We have Mr. David Winters, who's president of Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, is be talking to us about all the great work they're doing, and I think you're going to be blown away, and you're going to want to help even more. So, David, welcome to As It Should Be.
Lance, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I appreciate the help you've been giving us. It's tremendous.
Well, it's easy with guys doing great work like you. So let's start off this way, David. So, Intrepid Fallen Hero Fund, what is it, and what is this charter? What is y'all's specific charter?
Okay. Well, the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, we're a national nonprofit organization that supports the men and women of the United States Armed Forces and their families. The fund started in 2000, and you've asked about our charter. We've accomplished several missions in that time. We were originally founded to provide financial support to the families of service members who were lost in performance of their duty. Now, back in 2000, that was before before 9/11, before the conflicts. But as I'm sure your listeners know, we lose military personnel even in times of peace. There's training accidents, there's Coast Guard rescues, there's small military operations here and there. And although the numbers at the time were relatively low, every family who loses someone suffers this tragedy. And so we would provide a cash grant to those families. Now, when 9/11 came around and then our country became involved in conflict in Afghanistan and subsequently in Iraq, we unfortunately knew that need would increase. So we kind of ramped up our efforts and grew into a large organization, ultimately provided grants to several thousand families who lost somebody in Iraq or Afghanistan. So in 2005, the federal government substantially increased the federal benefits that those families would get. When we were operating, back in the early 2000s, it's an official term, but the death gratuity, which is the financial payment that the Department of Defense would give to a family, it's only $12,000. Service members could also get service members group life insurance. That would max out at $100,000, and we learned just in the course of our operations that some service members went off to combat without having their paperwork up to date. Some had chosen not to get the insurance because they did have to pay premiums. The premiums were very low, but if you're a young soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, even a low premium could add up. So we learned that some of these young men and women went off to combat with reduced benefits or no benefits. So some service members were lost, and all they got was that $12,000. So we provided a grant of $10,000 to those families and $5,000 additional for each dependent child. But in 2005, the federal government substantially increased those benefits. It increased, and it's been a few years, so hopefully I'm remembering this correctly, but increased the death gratuity to $100,000 and also covered the service members' group life insurance premiums for anyone who's deployed to that area of operations. So 2005, we said, okay, that need is now being much better taken care of. Should we continue to do our grants or should we do something else? So our leadership got together, and we got together with the Department of Defense leadership and said, we've provided, millions of dollars in support. We can still do more. What can we do? And together we decided that we could serve wounded military personnel. There were a lot of service members coming back again, mid 2000s, Afghanistan, Iraq, and military medicine is so great. Lots of men and women who are injured in combat, who may have died in earlier conflicts, are getting great care and living, but they're living with these terrible injuries. Lots of amputation injuries, lots of severe burn injuries from. Remember the roadside bombs? That's the terrorist preferred weapon. So you could be in a vehicle, you hit a roadside bomb, you're injured, you survive, but you may, have horrible leg injury, you may have an amputation injury. So we raised money to build a purpose-built physical wound treatment center and we called it the Center for the Intrepid. we built it down at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. And that opened in 2007. And that's been, ever since, that's been giving great care to these, these severely injured men and women who suffered injuries in serving our nation. So again, in 2007, we said, okay, we completed that. There's more that we can do. What can we do now? And by that time, I'm sure you and your listeners heard you talk about traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress from our service members serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. That was becoming very, very well known, and it's a huge problem. Since 2000, close to 400,000 service members have been diagnosed with some degree of traumatic brain injury, and probably an equal number, have suffered the injuries but haven't been diagnosed. So we said, hey, we built this center for the physical wounds. Let's build a center to help these invisible wounds of war, and that's what we're doing now. In short, we built kind of a pilot center called the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. We built that at Walter Reed at Bethesda. That opened in 2010, and we're now building a series of 10 what we call Intrepid Spirit Centers, bringing that traumatic brain injury care to these men and women all over the country. So that was a long answer. I hope I didn't drone on too much there, but that's kind of what we've been doing.
No, it's fascinating because it's how it's evolved. It's evolved over the history of the organization. So, matter of fact, I will give you some feedback. When I was doing the book launch on Facebook, we were announcing we were going to be doing this thing with Intrepid, and one of my Facebook members actually was gone through one of your centers. He was a warrior that had gone through one of your centers. And he just went on and on about what great care they took care of him. So it's just fabulous what you guys are doing.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah. Now, so David, how did you get involved, and how long have you been involved with the Fallen Heroes Fund?
I've been involved with the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund since it began. And the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund was inspired by a gentleman named Zachary Fisher. He's no longer with us. But he founded the Intrepid Sea Air Space Museum in New York City. He's founded the Fisher House Foundation program. That's a wonderful program that provides housing for families, military families and veterans families who are hospitalized at military VA hospitals. And that's a wonderful program. And Zachary Fisher founded several other military-themed nonprofits. So one of his efforts was providing, remember we talked about before, providing financial support to families of military personnel who had passed away. He was doing that himself. He started doing that way back after the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut. You remember that way back in 1993. Yeah. And he just kind of did that quietly. Just whenever he heard of service member passing away, he would contact the base and get a contribution to those families. So I did some work with him and with the Intrepid Museum here in New York. The Intrepid Museum is a retired World War II aircraft carrier. It's now a museum. That's where I'm talking to you from right now. That's where our offices are. So I was able to meet Mr. Fisher and do some work with him and work with the Intrepid Museum. When he passed away, some of his family members sort of wanted to continue that work. And since I had been doing some of that work with Zach already, I sort of joined in. And that's when the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund was born in 2000. So my work with the fund started kind of before it even started, because Zach was doing those efforts himself.
Well, I didn't realize the connection. So you got the connection with the Fisher House organization and Mr. Fisher, and Intrepid is actually for the USS Intrepid. They're actually their office is on the aircraft carrier.
Correct. Yes.
I had no idea.
And that's where we got our name, right?
Awesome. All right. So what a great office. So well, one of the fabulous things that really attracted me to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund is that 100% of the donations go to serve and benefit the vets. And so you got to talk about how's that even possible? I know the answer, but I want everyone to know, how is that possible that every dollar going in goes to serve the vets?
It's possible for two basic reasons. One is that our board of directors very generously, personally underwrite our operating costs. And part two is that we're a national nonprofit, but we work very hard to keep our operating costs at a minimum. So those two factors, but it really is it's the generosity of our chairman and our board of directors who say, hey, we'll cover the costs. I'm not saying we don't have administrative costs, we do, but they're covered. And exactly what you said. That way, if you send in $1 to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, $1 will go to building these centers to provide traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress treatment for military personnel.
I imagine you guys must be very unique in that regard. There can't, if anyone else, you can't be very many that are doing the same thing, are there, David?
Yeah, I can't claim universal knowledge on that, but I've never heard of any other organization that does that, at least to my knowledge.
I mean, I have not either. Wow, well, it's just fabulous. That's fabulous. So, all right, so you were talking about some of the projects you've done, and we were talking earlier before we get started with the groundbreaking. So what's in the works? What's coming up? What's in the pipeline, so to speak, with the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund?
So we're far down the road of our program to build 10 of what we call Intrepid Spirit Centers. We build these centers at military bases around the country, and they again provide this latest, extremely effective traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress care to military personnel. So again, we're building a series of 10 of these. 7 of them are already open and operating at military bases around the country, and we have 3 more to go. We're going to break ground in a couple weeks at our 8th center, which will be at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. That'll be our first center at an Air Force base, so that's exciting. Mm-hmm. We have 2 centers at Marine Corps bases. The rest are at Army bases. So, and then we have 2 more to go. After that, we'll build one at Fort Carson in Colorado, and the final one at Fort Bliss in Texas. So we're about 3/4 of the way there, but we still got to get to the finish line. We still got to raise the rest of the money and get these other 3 centers built.
Well, I think it's a very, I don't think anything happens for a reason, but I think it's a great coincidence that the book Tales of Old Florida happens to be coming out when you got a center going.
Absolutely.
So with a center, how many veterans can a center serve? What's the size of it? How many are they serving?
Okay. Well, each center is about 25,000 square feet. Okay, so it's a good size facility, and it really the numbers of patients served kind of depends on the base and the patient population. These are all active duty military personnel being served. These facilities are built at military bases, and shorthand, maybe that 1,000, 1,200, as many as that can be served each year. So when all 10 centers are open, we're really making a dent in that patient population, in that population of men and women who are suffering from these injuries.
That's outstanding. All right, so we've got your target's 10. You've got 7 in operation, I think I heard, and you got 3. Right. So we got 3 in the works. You got a groundbreaking coming up at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. So I know there'll be people here that want to help, and so how can someone help? How can someone contribute to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund?
Very easy. Our website is set up to take donations, and our website is fallenheroesfund.org. And we're also on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. So you can follow us on social media as well. And the other thing I'd ask your listeners to do, please come, please support this effort, but also please spread the word. Tell family, tell friends, because we don't have a huge advertising budget. So we depend on word of mouth. We depend on wonderful opportunities like you're giving us today, Lance. So please help spread the word. Traumatic brain injury, it doesn't cure itself. It doesn't just go away after time. If you have an injury, it has to be treated. So you may have suffered a traumatic brain injury, in 2004 in Iraq or Afghanistan or in training even. And if you don't have that injury taken care of, it can plague you the rest of your life. We haven't really gotten into this, but if you don't get these injuries treated, you can start having all sorts of cognitive problems, all sorts of problems, just managing your life, managing relationships. It can affect your memory. It can affect your concentration. Imagine you're a service member and you're having trouble concentrating. Well, you've got a job to do, right? It can cause family problems, because if you're having all these issues, it can be hard to interact with your family, with your friends. Can I take a second to tell the story?
Please.
I have a good friend. His name is Steve Taylor, a major in the United States Marine Corps. So he's an officer. He's a major. He's a leader of Marines, and he had several deployments to Iraq, and he suffered a traumatic brain injury, but he didn't know it. He wasn't diagnosed. So he started, having these issues I was talking about, this concentration, issues and issues at work. And even when he was back stateside, he's still working. He goes in his office. He's got to lead Marines and train Marines. But people started saying, "Hey, Steve, what's going on? You're losing focus. I asked you to do this, and you didn't do it." And at home, and his wife was telling him, "Honey, something's going on." And his answer was, "You guys are all screwed up. I'm fine," because he had this injury, but he didn't realize it. If you have a shrapnel wound or a bullet wound in your arm, all right, hey, I can see that injury, all right? You bandage it. If there's a broken bone, you set it. You do therapy, and you're taking care of it. But brain injury, you can't just look at your own brain and see, oh, here, this part's black and blue. So Steve, one day, he found himself screaming at his wife over a pizza topping. And out of the corner of his eye, he saw his little 3-year-old son cowering in the corner because daddy was yelling so violently at mommy over something so stupid. And that event kind of triggered something, and Steve said, hey, maybe something is wrong. And he went and got help, and he was treated at one of our centers. But so many service members don't have that moment of realization. They just go through the rest of their lives maybe with those problems. And if those problems aren't treated, you can get, discharged, maybe dishonorably discharged from the military. You can get into problems. If you can't work in the military, it's hard to get a job at home. Families fall apart. Can you imagine just you go and serve your country, and the result is you lose your family? That's the most horrible thing I can think of. So what we're doing is we're providing help for people like Steve, thousands of service members like Steve who need that care and now can get it.
It's hit home with us, and so it's a problem. And the fact that you guys are addressing it with our active military, that's why I was so happy to discover you and to hear about it. And now you're from my eyes, stuff I didn't realize as well as you're doing. And so everyone, here's what I want you to do. So we got 2 things I want to ask you to do. Number 1, you're going to go to fallenheroesfund.org, and I'll put this on the show notes as well so everyone has access to it. And you're going to make a donation. You're going to help out, our heroes, the Fallen Heroes Fund. And secondly, the thing I'm going to ask you to do, David said they could use more awareness, spread the word. So I want you to like their Facebook page, and I want you to start sharing their post with everyone on your Facebook, and I want you to propagate that they got great content. They have all kind of, I'm on their Facebook page. They have great updates. Matter of fact, they were very helpful in helping promote the book. So they got, just go on their Facebook and start sharing their posts, and that'll help create the awareness so we can spread the word on this fabulous help. Is there anything else people can do for you, Dave? What else can we do? Is there anything else?
The conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan aren't front page news anymore. The degree of combat is not like what it was back, 5-10 years ago. We all used to see news about the war in the headlines every day. But that doesn't mean that our service members are not in danger. They are. We have, they're still in Afghanistan. They're still in Iraq, not in the numbers of the war, but they're still there. They're in Syria, and there are other, there's operations going on in Africa. So service members are still, even if it's not in the headlines, please remember that these men and women are still serving every day, and they're in danger every day. And God forbid that there's some other conflict, but the history of human civilization is conflict. So there's probably going to be some other conflict down the road, and they're going to be the ones who answer the call and go. So just please always remember those who are serving. If you know a service member, if you have a service member in your family, if you are a service member, accept our nation's thanks. If you're not a service member, please, whatever way you can, thank a service member or a veteran just by saying, hey, I appreciate your service. You're not forgotten. We're Americans. You're Americans. We love you for your service, and that our nation wouldn't be our nation could not be a nation without these brave men and women courageously serving. So the last thing I'll ask is just please remember those who serve and honor them any way you can.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so everyone, here's what we're going to do. So this is going to be on the show. We'll have the show notes for the podcast. So write this down, fallenheroesfund.org. That's where you're going to make your contribution. And I expect you to do that by the moment we finish here. I want you on that webpage taking care of this. And the second thing I want you to do while you're on your computer, go to their Facebook page. And I guess you just search Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, and you'll find it.
Yep.
And go to the Facebook, like it, and start sharing that and get the awareness out. And as always, certainly honor our active military and our vets. David, I think you guys are doing a fabulous job. And you're getting, the maximum impact with the way that you're 100% goes to serve our active military, the way that, you're keeping your costs down, what your board does and what you're doing. I just really thank you. Just a fabulous, fabulous cause and a fabulous job you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, as we said before, I do appreciate your help and your generosity. I got your book right here in my hands, and you were very kind to support us, out of your own pocket and with your own efforts. So I thank you for that, and I thank your listeners for just taking the time to hear and to stay with your podcast, which sounds like a lot of fun.
So very good. Well, all right, everyone. So you got your instructions, you got your marching orders. Help out here, and it's been great having Mr. David Winters from Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. This is Lance Edwards with As It Should Be podcast. Until the next session, go live your life as it should be. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.